Michael Jordan, the immortal titan of basketball, the man who transformed the NBA into a global cathedral of greatness and etched the Jumpman logo into the very heartbeat of American culture. From a boy once told he was not enough, he rose to claim 6 thunderous championships, 5 MVP crowns, and a fire so fierce it rewrote the laws of gravity itself. But behind that blazing legacy lies a story not bright but brutal. A father stolen in a single cruel night, a marriage slowly unraveled by the cost of greatness, a spiritual son lost in a hillside of fog and silence, heartbreaks that left scars no trophy could ever redeem. And now, at 62 years old, a darker reckoning approaches, not from rivals or records, but from the quiet weight of all that was lost along the way. If Michael Jordan has ever inspired you to rise, hit like, as a tribute to the man who carried unimaginable pain while lifting an entire world to its feet. It is heartbreaking when the beginning of a legend is marked not by applause, but by the ordinary, merciless grind of a family that had nothing except each other. Michael Jeffrey Jordan was born on February 17, 1963, in Wilmington, North Carolina, inside a modest home held together by love, discipline, and the relentless work ethic of 2 people who believed their children could become more than the world around them suggested. His father, James Raymond Jordan Sr., labored long hours as a mechanic and factory supervisor. His mother, Dolores, balanced shifts at a local bank, while insisting her 5 children carry themselves with dignity and never mistake hardship for limitation. There was no luxury, no privilege, no shortcuts, only responsibility, structure, and the quiet expectation that every child would fight for their place in the world. Poverty was merciless in its subtlety. It did not announce itself with drama. It lived in the careful way Dolores stretched every dollar through the week, in the worn edges of hand-me-down shoes, in the way laughter in that crowded house always seemed a little louder than it needed to be, because laughter was free, and they were rich in it. Within that home, Michael found his greatest source of warmth in his father, a man who would sit with him in the backyard at dusk, teaching him how to hold a bat, how to trust his instincts, how to believe he could be more. Michael, the 4th of 5 siblings, grew up in a whirlwind of competition, where noise and pressure wove together into the fabric of his earliest memories. But the greatest pressure came from the boy he loved and feared losing to the most. His older brother Larry, stronger, quicker, sharper. Larry beat him in every backyard game, every race across the driveway, every jump in the fading Carolina sunlight. For years, Michael lived in the shadow of a brother he admired as deeply as he envied, later admitting with disarming honesty, "I always thought Larry was better than me." Those words carry the quiet ache of a child who felt unseen in his own home. Yet nothing cut deeper than the day the world told him he was not enough. In 1978, at just 15 years old, Michael stood in a crowded hallway at Emsley A. Laney High School and stared at the varsity basketball list tacked to the wall. Students whispered, laughed, celebrated. He scanned the sheet once, then twice. His name was not there. His heart dropped. His throat tightened. He turned away before anyone could see the shame burning behind his eyes and walked home slowly, each step heavier than the last. When I got cut, I went home and cried, he confessed years later, his voice still trembling with the truth that stung long after the wound should have healed. That night, his father James gently opened the bedroom door, sat beside him in the dimness, and reminded him that every great man rises from rejection. In that small room, Michael picked up a basketball and began to dribble. Each bounce echoed like a vow being written in the dark, a promise that the boy the world rejected would one day become someone the world could never forget. Those words became scripture. From that day forward, pain became discipline, rejection became fuel, humiliation became hunger, and through every sunrise that followed, one image drove him forward. The quiet pride in his father's eyes during those backyard evenings. It is haunting to think how wide the gap was between the dream that burned in Michael Jordan and the reality of a freshman arriving at the University of North Carolina in the fall of 1981. The campus towered above him in brick and shadow, its gyms echoing with the footsteps of boys already crowned as future stars. Michael arrived skinny, uncertain, swallowed by the scale of it all. At night, his dorm room felt colder than Wilmington. Coach Dean Smith's practices were unforgiving. Rituals of discipline, precision, obedience. He was not the star. He was not the chosen one. Some evenings he walked out of the gym feeling erased. The same invisible boy who once stared at a list without his name, and every time the doubt became too heavy to carry alone, he reached for the phone, clinging to the warmth in his father's voice. Then came March 29th, 1982, a night carved into American basketball like scripture. The NCAA championship game against Georgetown pulsed with pressure that could break grown men. The ball swung to Michael as the final seconds drained away. Time fractured, and in that impossible stillness, he rose and released. Swish. The net ripped open, and with it, the ceiling that had held him down since childhood. That shot, he would remember, gave me the confidence to be Michael Jordan. Everything changed after that. By June of 1984, destiny opened its grandest door. The Chicago Bulls selected him third overall, and Michael signed a 7-year, $6 million contract that would reshape the sport entirely. Then came 1991, and the detonation the world had been waiting for. 3 consecutive championships by 1993. A three-peat so rare it felt carved from myth. The Air Jordan sneaker line had grown into a cultural phenomenon, generating more than $30 million in its very first year. Every release sparked lines around city blocks. These were not just shoes. They were wings, symbols of flight, grit, and the belief that greatness was something anyone could lace onto their feet. Yet the price was steep. His body staggered through punishing seasons. His mind teetered under the weight of carrying an entire city's hope, and standing at the summit of everything he had built. Michael Jordan was about to discover that life holds its cruelest blows for the moments when a man believes he is finally safe. It is often said that triumph and tragedy walk side by side. But for Michael Jordan, they collided in the summer of 1993 with a violence no championship could have prepared him for. On July 23rd of that year, his father, James R. Jordan Sr., his anchor, his mentor, the man who had recorded every milestone with a camcorder, was attacked by strangers while resting in his car and taken from his son before Michael could say goodbye. When the news reached him, it did not arrive as words. It arrived as collapse. The phone slipped from his hand. The room spun. He did not move for a long time. He simply stood there. Somewhere between the man the world believed was invincible And the boy who had once cried behind a bedroom door, "My dad was my rock." He said quietly afterward, James Jordan was not merely a fan. He was the foundation, the steady voice behind every triumph. And when that foundation cracked, the world's greatest athlete looked into the mirror and saw only emptiness staring back. Some people carry pain like a badge. Michael would later admit, "I carry it quietly." On October 6th, 1993, he retired, not because his body had failed him, but because his heart had been broken beyond repair. And then came the decision that baffled millions. Baseball. His father had always dreamed of seeing him play professionally. So, in 1994, wearing the number 45, his childhood baseball number, Michael joined the Birmingham Barons. Every swing, he once admitted, was a prayer for my father. Years later, another father figure would rise to fill the space James had left. A quiet, steady man named Gus, a former Air Force veteran who arrived in Jordan's life as part of his security team, but became something far more sacred. He became the man who guarded not only Michael's body, but his spirit. The quiet protector who stood where a father once had. Gus helped me breathe again, Michael once admitted privately. And for a man who had been gasping for years, nothing meant more than that. But in 1999, Gus was diagnosed with lung cancer. Michael stepped closer instead of stepping back. He paid for every hospital visit, every medication, every treatment. He sat beside Gus during chemotherapy sessions, sometimes holding his hand, recounting stories just to pull his friend's mind away from the pain. Nurses whispered that Jordan never visited like a celebrity. He visited like family. In February 2000, Gus passed away. It was as if grief had a blueprint, returning to etch the same wounds deeper each time. At the funeral, Michael sat in the front row, shoulders trembling, not with the strength that once lifted Chicago, but with the quiet grief of a son mourning a father for the second time. When he finally stood to speak, his voice cracked as he whispered, "Gus was there when I needed someone the most." It was not a tribute. It was a confession. Michael covered all funeral expenses and continued supporting Gus's family for years, without fanfare, because loyalty was the only way he knew to honor love. And yet, even as Michael Jordan carried these private wounds, the world was watching another chapter of his life unravel in public. His marriage to Juanita Vanoy, begun in 1989 when he was 26, had once glowed with real tenderness. Tiny shoes beside championship rings, bedtime giggles echoing through trophy-lined hallways. For a time, even a man destined for immortality lived a life tender and beautifully ordinary. But fractures in a marriage rarely begin with earthquakes. They begin with hairline cracks, a missed recital, a holiday interrupted by interviews, a goodnight kiss given over the phone from another city, another obligation that always came first. "I wish I had been home more," Michael reflected years later, his voice carrying the bruised truth of a man who understood too late what he had traded away. They tried to rebuild. They tried to forgive the years that had worn them down. But some fractures, once deep enough, cannot be patched, only honored. In 2006, after 13 years of marriage and 4 years of legal proceedings, their divorce was finalized. The settlement of $168 million became the headline, but money was never the real story. The truest moment was smaller. It was Michael stepping out of the courthouse into cold Chicago air, realizing that for all his rings and records, There was one loss greatness could never undo. He thought the divorce was the final blow, but life had not finished with him. On a quiet morning in January 2020, news spread that Kobe Bryant, not just a superstar, but the closest thing Michael ever had to a son, a student, a little brother, and a mirror, was gone at just 41 years old. Beside him, his daughter Gianna, only 13, with her father's fearlessness stitched into every step. 9 souls in total, lost in a hillside of fog and silence. When Kobe died, a little piece of me died, Michael said at the memorial in Los Angeles, his voice breaking almost immediately, tears streaming down his face. And in that moment, every person listening understood that this was not a prepared line. It was a wound speaking out loud. With Yvette Prieto, whom he married in 2013 in a sunlit ceremony in Palm Beach, Michael found not the blazing triumph he once chased across hardwood floors, but a quiet and lasting warmth he had never known how to hold before. She was calm and steady, the kind of presence that made the air feel lighter. When their twin daughters, Victoria and Isabel, arrived in 2014, their home bloomed into a joy he had not felt since his older children were small. He turned his phone face down more often. He stayed home a little longer. He stood quietly in doorways just to watch his daughters breathe softly in their cribs. "I will not lose this one," he whispered to himself in the dark. The man who once sprinted toward every spotlight now found himself walking more slowly, savoring dinners, conversations, and the sound of small footsteps echoing through hallways. He chose stillness over noise, privacy over spectacle. Perhaps that is why the legacy that matters most today is invisible to cameras. It lives in the scholarships he funds for children who remind him of the boy once told he was not enough. In the health clinics he has built, without theatrics or announcements, applause fades. He once reflected, "Trophies gather dust, but the way you treated the people who needed you most, that endures." Now, at 62 years old, Michael Jordan stands as far more than a basketball legend. He stands as a living testament to what a human being can build when discipline meets purpose, when heartbreak becomes fuel, and when a vision refuses to die. His estimated net worth of $3.5 billion stretches across real estate empires, the Jordan brand generating hundreds of millions annually. Former team ownership, investments in tequila, motorsports, through 2311, motorsports, technology, and private equity. He engineered a dynasty that stretches across industries, continents, and generations. His primary residence in Jupiter, Florida sits inside the ultra-exclusive Bears Club community, a custom-built waterfront estate with resort-style pools and interior spaces crafted with museum-level detail. His legendary 56,000-square-foot Highland Park mansion in Illinois remains one of the most iconic private residences in American history. Centered around a full NBA regulation indoor court, built to echo the sound and bounce of Chicago Stadium. Yet what defines him is not what he owns. It is what he gives. Hundreds of millions in pledged donations, youth centers, educational scholarships, structures designed to uplift families long after he is gone. From the dim bedroom, where a 15-year-old boy vowed to rise, to the global stage where a legend was born. From the morning his father was taken from him, to the midnight hospital corridors, where he refused to let a second father die alone. From a broken marriage that cost him more than any championship, to the sunlit home, where twin daughters call his name across warm hallways, Michael Jordan's life teaches us that greatness is never simply what a man achieves, it is what he survives, and who he chooses to become on the other side of the breaking. His life is not simply luxury, it is legacy, not merely comfort, but meaning. If this story has touched your heart, leave a tribute below. And, wherever life finds you tonight, may you be blessed